Welcome to Faith Positive Radio with Dr. Joey Fawcett, the Christian business coaching conversation that increases your faith with greater joy at work so you love God and others more. Dr. Joey interviews Christian business professionals just like you to discover their secrets for working faith positive in a negative world. Welcome to Faith Positive Radio with Dr. Joey Fawcett.
Faith Positive Nation, second only to heaven. The topic Jesus talked most about was cue Pink Floyd money right here, right? Cha-ching, right? He talked about money. And so, render unto Caesar what's Caesar's, render unto God what's God's. He just had a great take on money. You can't serve both mammon and God, so you have to make some choices. And yet the reality of you and I living out Jesus' words every single day is a bit challenging, right? Because money, as Zig Ziglar said, is like oxygen. It's pretty high up there on the importance scale. You got to have it to get by in today's world. So how do you manage your money in ways that Jesus would want you to manage your money? Today's guest is going to help you with that. And she is absolutely amazing because she brings a wonderful biblical and theological perspective to money. And she's absolutely brilliant in accounting and tax preparation and all those kinds of things that you and I need each and every day. So Faith Positive Nation, help me welcome to Faith Positive Radio, Shanyn Stewart. Shanyn, welcome to Faith Positive Radio.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have you and delighted to have you on. So what does your typical work day look like? What are you doing with yourself each day?
So we are actually a full service firm. So we do everything from accounting and tax preparation to financial planning. Our main focus is tax strategy, though, and to help people with the strategy that they're employing to pay less taxes, or if they found themselves in a situation where they may not have always paid what they needed to pay, and now they're kind of behind, they have the IRS kind of chasing them down. We're standing in the gap, and we're helping them get their life back in order.
So when somebody gets that letter in the mail with the return address, IRS, and their heart rate picks up and their palms start sweating, they talk to you. Tell us what a tax strategy is as opposed to tax preparation and those kinds of things. Help us understand that.
So tax preparation is keeping you in compliance. It's making sure that you're filing the right numbers on the right form and that you're paying the right amount of taxes that you need to. So that's compliance. That's tax preparation.
Okay.
And those are basically putting in your historical numbers. Mm-hmm. Tax strategy, on the other hand, is actually being proactive and coming up with a strategy to create those, instead of having history already being recorded, we're actually going to be creating history by utilizing the proper tax codes for your particular situation. So we're being proactive. We're not being reactive. We're actually coming up with a proactive strategy that we work year after year in order to mitigate your taxes.
And mitigate is the magical word for pay less taxes, right?
Correct.
So instead of me saying, I wish I'd done this last year, you're helping me plan to do it next year so I pay less taxes. Because while I'm required to pay taxes, they don't tell me how much I have to pay in taxes.
Well, you are required to pay taxes, definitely, but there are caveats and IRS codes that are actually, that a lot of individuals actually miss. And really what sets us apart is about 97% of all tax professionals prepare taxes based on your historical numbers. And they're so busy preparing those taxes that they can't be proactive. And so about 3% of all tax professionals actually take the philosophy of being very proactive and putting their clients into a kind of a forward visioning of what they're doing for the year, what their businesses are doing for the year, so that we make sure that we're taking advantage of every legal tax code that exists for them.
So instead of being reactive, I'm proactive.
Correct. And that helps those IRS letters not come as well.
Well, anytime we can keep those out of the mailbox, we're in good shape, right? Because usually they're followed by one from the state, and then the whole thing cascades out of control, right? Well, how does your faith, Shanyn, shape your tax strategy and tax preparation work?
Oftentimes when I work with someone, they'll come to me and they'll say, I'll get a phone call from someone who is a prospect, and they'll say, I've got an IRS letter, or a revenue officer has showed up at my house and or at my place of business, and I need help.
They do that? These revenue officers show up at your home or your place of business?
Well, if you are a business owner and you've ignored their letters, they can.
So it's not like the first call. It's
no.
You dump their letters for 6 months and then they say, hi there, we're from the IRS. Okay.
Yeah, usually they show up in our office, or we do a lot of virtual, they'll say, I've loaded into the Dropbox, 16 letters that I just happened to open this morning that were 16
letters. I didn't think they were important, even though the return address said IRS.
Exactly. And here's the thing: the IRS is scary.
Well, if you've not been there like you have time after time and dealt with them, to the average person like me, highly scary.
And I think one of the things I found, I was a pastor years ago, and one of the things that being a pastor taught me was to be very to be empathetic to those that I meet, but also to understand that we have a very orderly God. And then oftentimes when we have an IRS issue, I'll be in prayer before my meeting and I'll hear in my ear something that the Lord has for that individual. Oftentimes if they have an IRS issue or they have a tax issue, there's something else out of order in their life.
I got you. So if I've thrown 16 letters from the IRS in the trash can, there's probably some other stuff I need to deal with too.
Right. And it's not something that I don't, when you're working with somebody, it's speaking their language and meeting at their point of understanding. And so when we work with individuals, we are trying very hard. I mean, we're going to go in and we're going to mitigate the IRS issue that they're having, but we're also going to try to speak faith and love into their life at the same time to let them know that, oftentimes we see habitual people. This is like a habitual pattern in individuals' lives, especially when we talk about tax resolution. And so really I'm very sensitive to the Holy Spirit talking to me and instructing me on what is actually happening in this individual's life and how we can try to leave their life in a better place, not just their taxes, but their life in a better place.
So this is not a tax problem that walked through the door. This is a person who has a tax problem that walked in the door, and you're empathetic with the person and speak to his or her need.
Correct.
That is such a huge switch to flip for those of us in the marketplace seeking to be Christ in the marketplace, right? Because we attack problems. Sometimes we attack people, right?
Right.
But I love the way you flip that switch and see the person walking in the door, and that person happens to be a problem. So therein lies the opportunity for you to share the love of Christ with them.
Correct.
That's beautiful. So how do you shift that focus? I mean, you hadn't been doing this forever. You look way too young to be doing it forever. So what was the defining moment for you when that switch flipped for you and you said, I'm not just working on IRS tax problems. I'm helping a person who has an IRS tax problem.
Well, I think, one of my mottos in life is never withhold good when it's in your power.
Say that again.
Never withhold good when it's in your power. And I think when we take a look at, the Lord has blessed me with a great team of individuals who work for me, but also has blessed me with understanding to how to navigate the obstacles that lie before us when we're talking about tax strategy and resolution. And that flipped a switch for me because I tried to battle it for a long time. When I was a pastor, I was a bivocational pastor, and I always was trying to fight to get back, to go from being, working and being a pastor to just being a pastor full time. And I battled the Lord to get back into just ministry full time. And it wasn't until the Lord really said to me, you're not going to hang your shingle. You're not meant. The church is not inside these walls. The church is inside that office building. And so you go meet people in what is my church. And so it was something that the Lord had to do with my own heart, though. It was a heart issue I was having. And the Lord had to work on that until, and part of me was kicking and screaming.
You mean you didn't say, well, thank you, Jesus, for pulling me out of the church and sending me into the business world full time?
Yeah, and I fought it. And it was when I fully surrendered that the Lord has just blessed us in bringing people. You know, I actually have a very large gay and lesbian client base. And the Lord is working miracles in that space.
Yeah. So
and
ministering to all of God's children.
Definitely.
Yeah. So when you say God worked on your heart and you surrendered to his will, it sounds like to me the massive mind shift for you, or heart shape shift, right, was thinking of ministry as done within church walls and through the auspices of a church, right, as a pastor, to seeing yourself as pastoring your clients. What did it take for God to get you to move?
Well, I mean, literally, we had a revival at our church, and an evangelist came in, and he spoke.
So you're the pastor at the church.
I'm the pastor of the church. Okay. I have an evangelist come from Knoxville, Tennessee, and he's preaching a 3-day weekend, and it's a revival.
And so you brought this Knoxville evangelist in for your people.
I did.
And you're the pastor. Okay.
I'm the pastor, and so at the end of Sunday night, he gives the the altar call, and I'm up there. I'm on my face, on the altar before the Lord, and he comes in and he whispers in my ear, "I have a word from the Lord." And he said, "It's June, and by September, you'll no longer hang your shingle outside this church." And I remember distinctively, I stopped.
But I thought the evangelist came for the people, not for the pastor.
Well, I know, but when the Lord has a word, he's gonna bring a word to you.
Go get it to you. Okay.
And I remember I looked at him and said, "Do you know who I am?" Like, I thought maybe he got confused. Like, "You know who I am."
Pastor.
Yeah. I literally, I remember I was angry. I was like, and then the worst part is this evangelist was staying in our home.
Oh no, you had to take him home after delivering that word
home with me.
I'd have got him a room at the Hampton Inn or something,
And so we're sitting around the kitchen table the next morning, and I said to him, "Are you sure you heard the Lord right?" Like, I think he had something. And
Shanyn Stewart wanted a different word from the Lord because she didn't.
Yeah, I wasn't receiving it at that time.
Anybody in Faith Positive Nation relate to that besides me? Yeah. So what did he say across the breakfast table when you asked that question?
He gave me good advice. He says, "You need to take this to prayer and fasting. Test the word I gave you."
Oh, don't you hate it when they do that?
He put it right back on me.
Put it back on you. What are you supposed to do then? You were wanting to blame him for getting the word wrong. And he said, "Well, go check it out," right?
Exactly.
So you went and checked it out.
And at our meeting, our first meeting in the month of September.
The church's first meeting.
The church's first meeting, we were congregational rule. They decided that the direction that I was taking the church was not the direction they wanted to go.
And when did that meeting occur?
The time frame that he said it would, in September of that fall.
There goes God again, right?
Yeah. And so it was a situation where I was devastated, to be completely frank.
That's a hard word to hear because you so self-identified as a pastor, right? Even though you're bivocational, you were trying to get deeper in the church, and here goes God pulling you out.
Yeah.
So how'd you recover from that devastation?
It took some time because now, I lost my church. Like, I didn't have a place to go on Sunday.
Oh, wow.
They said, you can stay in the church. You can stay here.
You just can't be behind that pulpit and leading us.
Yeah, you can't be in leadership.
Holy cow.
So I felt, it was where I dedicated my children, and my children, my father was baptized there. And so it was very devastating. And it felt like the Lord had sent us out into the wilderness. Because now we were trying to find a church that we could fit into.
And you were forsaken.
And, but God has a plan, because as soon as that happened, my business exploded in a good way. We had We had more, people were seeking us out. It was like my time had been freed up.
Oh, almost like God knew you were going to need that time.
Exactly.
To minister in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So God was right.
Yeah, he was.
The evangelist got the word right.
Yeah.
Man, I sure am glad God takes control when I don't know what to do. And that's what happened for you. So you came out of the church. You're now, you're a pastor in the marketplace, right? You're a marketplace ministry, tax preparation, tax strategy. You see people instead of problems walking through the door. You see opportunities to minister to people at a time when they're very vulnerable, even fearful, right, of what's going on. So what are some of the challenges, Shanyn Stewart, that you face in doing this work to which God's called you?
Well, I think one of the things is that, we are dealing with heart issues. The bottom line is when individuals walk in through our door, we're dealing with heart issues and we're dealing with fear. And one of the things that I had to learn myself was that, true love casts out all fear. True. And if you are there and you are loving people, now sometimes there's truth and love. Sometimes you have to
speak the truth in love, right?
You've got to speak that truth in love. Sometimes I have to take a hard stance and say, this is what you have to do, and this is the repercussions for you not doing it.
You can pay these taxes or you can go to jail. It's your choice, right?
Exactly. But it's also that sometimes people just need to be heard as well. And I think that's one of the key things that we do is we listen. There's a community of internet marketers. One of the leading internet marketers in the marketplace today actually has me speak a lot on webinars to his people. And I speak about tax strategy and I talk about IRS things. But one of the things when the people come through from that webinar, I said to him, we're not dealing necessarily with IRS issues. We're dealing with heart issues, and we've got to take care of the heart issues before we can address all of these IRS issues. And he said to me, it's amazing how God has basically made you the pastor of my community. I have an online community of 20,000 people, and he's made you the pastor.
Oh, wow.
And we've seen life changes happen as I've worked with these people, and we've mitigated their taxes and we've mitigated their, the problems that they're having, but their marriages are stronger and their relationships are stronger. It's just amazing when God opens up what happens when there are people. I had one gentleman come to me on a webinar. He funneled through, and I did a Zoom call with him. And I heard I always pray before going into my meetings for the day. I actually get up at 5:30. I don't come until 10 because I call that my Renaissance time, and it's my time just to listen and to seek the Lord. And I had heard that his wife and him were having marital problems. And I knew that going into the call, but I didn't, I just thought he had a tax planning issue. That's what his form said.
Right.
The Lord gave me other insight. And so we got onto this Zoom call, and he's talking about this. And I said, it's funny, we have a God of order. And oftentimes when I see things out of order in one area of your life, sometimes it means there's out of order in other area of your life. And I see your wife isn't here with us today. And I have a feeling that there's something else going on. Would you like to share that? And now that probably was a little bold.
Probably. And it was bold.
That's kind of my MO. It's kind of me.
It's Shanyn Stewart too.
It is. And he just hung his head and he started to weep. And he said, my wife left me last night. Now, I can't take care of the IRS issue until now. I got to take care of this other issue first. I got to address this other thing here because my fighting the IRS depends on him coming through with data and work and following through. And how can he do that when he's got this other thing hanging with more priority on his life?
Right. And where do you go with that kind of stuff? My wife left me last night. Especially guys, right?
Yeah.
So would any of those, just using this online marketer statement for an example, you're the pastor to his community of 20,000. How many of those 20,000 people would have come into the church that God called you out of?
None of them. Because really, if you take a look at, what we're dealing with in today, there's a lot of people who never stepped through the doors of a church. There's a whole generation that is unchurched.
And those who were churched and no longer participate in church life.
Right. Right.
Millions of those. Mm-hmm.
And so where do, and Jesus didn't bring them into the synagogue. Right?
Right.
I mean, did Jesus, how did Jesus convert or talk or worship or love on people?
Well, what did he authorize us to do?
He mandated us.
As you're going. He didn't say go to church and make disciples. As you're going. So as Shanyn Stewart has people coming in her door or coming on a Zoom call to help them with tax preparation and tax strategy, that's how she makes disciples.
And it's covert a little bit because I'm not hanging my shingle out there.
You mean you don't have a sign that says Shanyn Stewart, Christian tax preparer or anything like that?
And you know what? I'll have to tell you, in the internet circles, because I also, I'm a Michigander, and, we hunt and fish and we drive pickup trucks.
And exactly. You're from right here, right?
Right. Okay. They call me the gun-toting tax strategist. I mean, that's the persona. There's not, and
I don't see a gun anywhere. I don't even see a rack on the wall. The gun-toting tax strategist.
And when I went to this conference recently, they're like, it's the gun-toting tax strategist who happens to love Jesus. And I was like, wow, I'm glad someone picked up on that.
The gun-toting or the Jesus part? Well, it seems to me that when Jesus commissioned us, he told us to be known for our love. Mm-hmm. And Shanyn Stewart, that's what I hear you doing in the marketplace every day with people who would never have come into your church where you were a pastor. Mm-hmm. So it looks like to me God turned your church inside out.
He did. Turned me inside out.
And the two were related.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that story, because I know somebody at Faith Positive Nation right now is struggling with this. They may or may not be a pastor or think that only, more common is they think only their pastor can minister because you have to go to Bible college and study and all this kind of stuff, right? But what I hear you saying is, sure, but introduce people to the Jesus of love that you know wherever you find yourself, whether it's in a tax office or even if you work for the IRS, right?
Right.
Wonderful. So Faith Positive Nation, Shanyn Stewart always wants to know from our guest about a favorite Bible verse or a favorite Bible passage. You obviously know the Bible quite well because you've dropped 2 or 3 verses on me during this interview. I don't know if one of those is your favorite or if you got another one you've been holding back as your favorite.
Yeah, Psalms 91.
Psalm 91. The whole chapter? I asked for a verse.
So I'll just give you a snippet. I think there's so much inside that whole chapter. I think that the thing to remember is that, the Lord is our refuge and he will keep us from harm. And, especially when we're in the marketplace, we come under attack. Constantly. And I think that, that verse tells us that he commands his angels about us. And that he's going to, we're not going to strike our foot against a stone. We're not going to, be trampled upon, that he knows the battle that, we're in the midst of, and he's aware. And so I just love that's actually a prayer I pray every day, that whole chapter.
Wow. And I think it's about the 5th or 6th verse there, Dr. Peterson, who passed recently. Dr. Peterson's translation in the Message says, fear nothing.
Fear nothing.
And then he gives that whole list of things that you're talking about, and then says that the job of the angels are to do what? Protect us, to keep us from falling. Okay, I'll let you buy with the whole chapter. I got it. Shanyn Stewart, somebody at Faith Positive Nation is saying, hey, I want to talk some. I want to just communicate with this gun-toting tax preparer and strategist who loves Jesus. How can they reach out to you?
Yeah, so if you go to my website, advancedaccounting.com, in the right-hand corner, you're going to see an icon that asks for a consultation. And so I offer free consultations to anyone who'd like to Zoom with me and to have a talk about their tax strategy, their tax problem, or just talk about Jesus. I'm pretty good with that too.
Or talk about all of the above, D, right? Okay, so that's advancedaccounting.com. And if you're walking the dog or you're on a treadmill or riding down the road in your vehicle, in Shan's case, a truck, I'm sure, at least an SUV, right? Hey, you'll find advancedaccounting.com hyperlinked on Shanyn's page on our website, getpositive.today. So go check that out. Shanyn, you have certainly blessed my heart today, and you blessed my mind too. The sincerity and authenticity with which you shared your story of transition, of God turning your heart inside out and your notion of church inside out is huge, and something we can all learn from today. So I pray God's blessings on you and on your amazing family and on the team of people with whom you work that also love Jesus. We just pray God's blessings on everything you do each and every day. Thank you, Shanyn.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Faith Positive Radio, the Christian business coaching conversation that increases your faith with greater joy at work so you love God and others more. Suggest guests and ask questions when you email Dr. Joey at info@getpositive.today. And be sure to get your free gift of the 5 positive business conversations to have today coaching program at getpositive.today. Until next time, may God bless you with everything your heart can hope for and more than your mind can imagine.